Now I'm doing this on my iPhone, so please forgive me if I'm a bit wiggly. You can see I've set up my MFT3 as a cutting station, and I've got the MW1000 to its left for support. Now I'm using the path fence along the MFT3, a couple of the path superdogs as you can see, and I'm into battery power with my saw as also you can see. Now the two end frames are really important to getting everything as it should be, nice and square and all lined up. So what I've done is I've made a little insert piece of wood. You can see it just there, triangular piece. That gives that top end at exactly 120 degrees. I've done a similar thing at the two bottom corners at right angles. Those are set in by about 12 millimeters by making a little groove with the router. And so those are in fairly well. I've glued them and I've used some staples, put in at an angle like that, just to hold them in place whilst the glue goes off. All the other joints are screwed, and I'm in the process now of making sure that the middle four uprights are in exactly the right position and that the overall frame is exactly square. Right, I'm just going to take you through some metrics here. Here's my handy dandy little protractor, and that is absolutely spot on 120 degrees. It's a pity about that little bit of damaged wood there because it makes it difficult to see that really and truly is spot on. And let's go to the other end now. It's all screwed up, and the only thing I've got to do is put my noggins in, but I don't know exactly how I want those. They're going to be placed so that they match where I want shelving to go. And here we have the square in this corner, and there that is, absolutely spot on. Super. Well, I'm really pleased with that. It's worked very well. And that's the first end, and this will be the reference frame so that all my other frames conform to this one. And just here you see for my ridge board, I cut a little piece of the ridge board material, and that's just loose in there, which is more or less as it should be. Maybe it should be a fraction tighter, but that's absolutely super duper. And I must say, having this trolley that I bought from Colding Casters, it was their cheap and cheerful one, not that cheap, but it was really good. And it's really, really useful carrying lumps of wood like this to and fro. So well done, Colding. I'm using the first one I made as my template now for all the other bits of slopey roof stuff. And I've just got this end section. I've put this insert here in place, and I'm just going to secure it with some staples. There we go, that's that bit. I've got glue in there as well, of course. That clamp stopped this piece from going upwards because that screw's going at that angle. It's just like pocket hole screws, they make the joints go off. That's why I don't like pocket hole screws. Just I put a flat on there so that's parallel to there, so I can put a clamp across. So that's the top half done for now. Now this frame is the one that has the door frame within it, and instead of having the door frame at this stage, I've put a piece of wood in which is the exact width that I should expect, and that allows me now to do the rest of these joints down here. Now at this stage you've got to be actually quite careful, because This has got to sit nicely here, nice and square. You've got to check it for square, and before one actually then introduces the final stage, which is the door frame, you've got to make sure everything is perfect. Now with all these things, the simplest place to start is a corner, and I'm using these little corner brackets just to reinforce things a bit. Put some glue in there. Fine. Now I haven't yet done the staples on these bottom bits yet, because I want to get the top end of these two long rails in place first, and then check for square before I then commit myself to fixing these in place, because these are what keeps something square. Now, in order to get it right at this end, I moved my piece of wood which I was using as a spacing piece down there, and I moved up to here. I then screwed here, screwed there, and that's going to stay there. Whilst the glue goes off, I'm just going to check for square, and I'm then going to staple in those two bracing pieces at the bottom end. A bit too generous. A bit there, check this for square. Oh, not far out. Probably close enough for government work. Let's see if I can get any indication there. Yeah, that is spot on square for this piece, which is really important. And the same there. That's absolutely spot on square. So, I'm just going to make sure these are in. I'm going to staple those in now. Once those done, I'll do the other side. Right, that's that. I'm going to let that glue go off. Super. Now I'm just going to talk you through my production line setup. On the floor, I've got my master end frame. It's the original one that I made at the very beginning. And from this one I made a copy, but it had the arrangement for the door. I'm now doing the roof trusses, and again I'm using the master frame as the pattern. Now, because my sarking is actually going to sit on top of the trusses, but butt up to the end pieces at the truss point, I've put a piece of 18mm thick wood along there, and you can probably just see it along there, screwed to the master frame, so that my subsequent frames make an allowance for the sarking. Now I've got uprights which are just held in place with a couple of clamps, which represent the uprights for the sides, one there and one here. So those are held firmly in place with those clamps, and it means now I can make my roof trusses knowing that they will sit properly on the sides once the shed is being constructed. And my various pieces, because I made a bit of a bishop when I ordered the wood, I should have had some 47 by 75 for these trusses. I accidentally ordered some 47 square, and so I'm doubling that up, and that's why you see two pieces there instead of one. But actually it made the business of putting that little joint in at the end much easier, and there's actually no real problem at all. Now I've got some cross members over there and some vertical pieces, some in a pile there, and two waiting to go into place here. And all this comes together to produce a truss. And in true Blue Peter style, here are two that I've made already. Now there are only going to be 6 trusses like this, because of the end frames are going to provide the support themselves. There we go. Now I've got to make a bunch of these, which go at the end like so. It allows me to put a fascia on the length of along the length of the shed. So I've started by making a piece this shape, and now in order to finish it off and take off that little bottom piece, and so they're all the same, I've set this up like so, and I just do a cut, being very careful to watch your fingers. And as always, let the saw blade stop, otherwise these pieces can go flying. And there we have that piece. Right, I've now put a sheet of plastic over the bottom frame, and that is stapled down all round, and that is impervious to moisture. The plastic which is underneath has got holes in it, and so moisture can drain through if it accumulates. I'm satisfied there are enough gaps around the place also to have a sort of modest air supply going through the underframe. Now you may notice that I've marked the black plastic with some crayon lines, and that is to help me when I come to place the floor on and to screw it down. Those mark the positions or the centre lines of the various joists underneath. Now when it comes to cutting the OSB, I'm using the actual base of the shed as my cutting platform. And of course the off-cut piece, which you see here, could then fall down and maybe even sort of break at the end of the cut. So what I've done is I've put a couple of traffic cones, one from this end and one from that end there. And because they're wedge-shaped, I can get them in so they're nice and snug. And that supports the off-cut just enough for the cut to be complete before it then drops. Well, that's the OSB down. It's gone down really easily. I'm really pleased with that. And I've now got to start putting the frames up in place, which is the real exciting bit, because you then start to see a shed. So I've now put those framing pieces on top of the base, and it's all looking quite nifty. It's only held together with the clamps, which you can see around the place, and I've just checked it for square. I made this square using the custom top I made with the path guide system, and so I know the square is perfectly square, and you can see, or at least I hope you can see, that that is nice and square as well. So I'm now going to screw everything together and call it a day.